Hello everyone, welcome back to Odoo 14 development videos. In the last two videos we were discussing about inheritance. We looked into three different types of inheritance and view inheritance in last videos. In this video we are going to a different area. It's called the compute method. So as you know, fields can be computed instead of directly reading them from the database. We can compute a field's value from other different fields, just like a total of an invoice is computed from the line items and the tax, that kind of things. So all these fields are not directly read from the database. It is, and we are not entering that data into the invoice. It is computed from other data, other fields that we have in the same model. So here now we are going to that part. In our Open Academy module, we are going to add a new field under the session object. We are adding a new field. It's called taken seats. So we have attendee IDs, number of seats. So from these things we are computing the number of seats that is already taken. So here we have to specify what are the fields that we use to compute the taken seats. That's why we put the api.depends decorator, and inside this bracket we put the seats. That's a field. We have the number of seats, and the attendee IDs will contain the many records, restored partner records that are attending these sessions. Then, as you know, it's a normal for loop to recur through this self, and if nodes there is no seats defined, then taken seats will be 0. Then otherwise we will check the length of the attendee IDs and then divide that with the number of seats available and get the percentage. Sorry, we are putting the percentage here, taken seats 50% or something like that. How many we have already sorted, so not the number of taken seats. So here you can see this is the decorator that we are using to mention the fields that this computation is depends upon. So in our case it's seats, and here this attendee IDs. We can also look for other compute fields. We mentioned an example later just before. It's a invoice. We can check what are the things that depends upon. I hope it won't confuse you. Yeah, account move. Yes, we have the account move here. Compute amount. There is a compute amount. So you see a large list of depends. api.depends. This compute amount, you can see Control C, Control F. Let's search here. So payment state is computed by the compute amount, residual amount paid. You see everything is here. So all these fields are computed by this compute amount function. This compute amount function is computing and supplying all these values for all these fields, and that function depends on a lot of other fields you can see other amount residual, all other amount residual, IDs dot debit, credit, currency ID, amount, currency. A lot of fields are used. So it's a big example as we compare to our simple model here. So this, there are a lot of occasions that you can find in your Odoo source code where we are using compute fields. So these compute fields, we mentioned that we have to specify the fields that are dependent, that depends upon the computation. So we have to mention this. So here you have seen that we have used dotted fields, right? I hope you see that. So we can specify subfields. Subfield means a, that lies under this different account under this our main object. So in the case of invoice, we have to consider the product lines, right? The invoice lines. So we can go to that and put that in our depends using this dotted method, this dot operator. Using this dot operator, we can specify the subfields. And these compute computed values, the next thing that you have to keep in mind is the computed fields are directly not stored in the database. Okay, so these computed fields are not stored in the database. You can see they put the store is equal to true. It is saying that you have to system have to store it in the database. So if you didn't give this attribute in their field definition, it won't store into the database. So if you want to store the computed value into the database, we have to give store is equal to true. Then the next thing is as you know, the computer fields are not stored in the database by default, and if it is not stored, you cannot search based on that field in your from your user interface. So that's another thing, that's another advantage. If you put the store is equal to true, it will be stored in the database, then it will be available for search. Then the next point that you have to keep in mind, if you don't want to store the value of the computation into the database and you want to enable searching for that field, we have another option. It's called search attribute. We can look for that if we have anything here. Let's look for another example. So you can see something. Let's take something familiar. So it's a option HR leave type, time of type. It's another example we can take. So here this max leave is a compute field. You see the compute is equal to compute leaves. The compute leave function will be supplying values to this, and that's called the maximum allowed leaves is stored in that will be shown in that field. Here you can see search max leaves. So this function, giving this using this attribute, we can search these records that means HR leave types based on maximum leaves. It is still not stored in the database. We haven't given the store true, but we can search based on that. So we have to define that function here, like search max leave, self operator, and values. This is the common structure, and we have to handle all other things. So operator, if the operator is equal to uh, greater than, less than, equal to, not equal to, I like, and everything. So this way you can define that, and you have to return a domain like this. So this is how you can enable search on a computed field. By default it won't be available. The search field will not be available on compute fields if it is not stored in the database. To make them store into the database, you have to give store is equal to true. If you do that, you don't have to specify a search attribute, search parameter. The next thing that you have to keep in mind is uh, computed fields are read only. By default you cannot edit the total value of an invoice, right? So the same way, by default the read on these computer fields are read only. So to allow user to set a value on a computer field, we have to use the inverse attribute, inverse parameter. So you can see this in invoice parameter somewhere. Let's see here in the invoice case, we don't have that. Let's see if we have anything here in this HR leave. Okay, we can search just like we did for this one. So here we can see quantity delivered, quantity producing, a lot of examples there. Let's take this example from sales. So here this is looks like in sale order line. Yeah, it's in sale order line. Okay, in sale order line we have this inverse. So this quantity delivered field is, we can see that in our sale order line, it's a compute field, but we can submit data into that field. We can allow uh, to the write permission into that field. So what will happen is, if you write values into that field, this function will invoke. So you have to give an inverse parameter. So what that will, this function should reverse the compute operation and set the appropriate values into that uh, related relevant fields. Let's check what is happening here. Quantity, when writing on quantity delivered, if the value should be modified manually, quantity delivered method is equal to manual only. Then we put the value in quantity delivered manual, otherwise quantity delivered manual should be false, since the quantity delivered quantity is automatically computed by other mechanism. You can read that here. So it's what it is doing is, line in self line dot quantity delivered method is equal to manual, then these values will be stored in the quantity delivered manual. So this quantity delivered, we are giving this inverse parameter in this quantity delivered function, and that field is setting value to the appropriate field. So it's quantity delivered manual field is the field that in this scenario the system is setting to. So this way you can enable the writing, the we can you can disable that read only option, read only filter from that compute field, and you can enable writing into that field. So at that time you have to write a function to handle that case and set appropriate values to relevant fields using this inverse parameter. So that's the next thing that you have to keep in mind. And as we have seen in our invoice, you can use the same method to compute different values for different fields. So here amount untaxed is computed by this compute amount function, and the same way the amount tax also computed by the compute amount function, amount total, amount residual, amount untaxed. All these functions are computed using this compute amount function. So you can do that. Okay, so we can check the compute amount. You see line dot amount residual, everything is setting from here, amount currency. So you can do that. Okay, that's another thing that you have to keep in mind. So and another important thing that you have to keep in mind regarding this compute field, since we can set, we can use the same compute field for multiple fields, but you can, it's not recommend to use the same inverse function for multiple fields, because sometimes in most of the times it will only write the value to the triggered. So if you put the let's take the same example. If you put the same inverse method for all these functions, all these all these fields, same inverse function for all this field, if the inverse is triggered for this amount untaxed, it won't set, it will set the value into correctly into some field, but other fields will get set into false by default. So that will mess up many things. So it's not recommended to use the same inverse function for multiple fields. So these are the things that you have to keep in mind when you when you use the compute method. So in our case, we have we have created taken seats, so that taken seats field will have the number of percentage of how many seats are already booked, or how many seats are already full. So we only added this in our model. We have to add that into our view. So let's move into that part. I hope you have understood all the points that we discussed. Now let's update our views to accommodate this new change. Open Academy. So this is course. So yeah, this is session. Now under the seats we can add our new field name taken underscore seats. So we added in our form view, and let's take the same and add that into our tree view also. Now let's restart and update the module. Great. Open Academy, then sessions, taken seats 6. So number of seats we had is 50, and we the attendee is only 3. Take 10, then it's 30. We only have 3, then it's 100. If we have 6, then it's 50 percentage. You see. So this is how these things are working. Now 133, if we use from here, then so this is automatically updating, you see, based on these two fields. So these things are working. So there is another way we can represent this value using a widget. We can use the progress bar widget to show that detail as a bar, progress bar. To do that, we can go to this here. It's like we use the widget many to many tags. We can use another widget called progress bar. We can give this here also. Then go back to apps and update Pen Academy sessions. You can see the progress bar here. See, so we have added a compute field that's called, and that will have the taken number of the percentage of taken seats, and we have explained the different points that we have to keep in mind while dealing with the compute fields. I hope you understand what we have said. If you have any doubts, please put under the comment section, and uh, please subscribe to our channel if you want to get updates on upcoming videos. Thanks for watching.